The grinder chewed through the second post and the panel sagged an inch toward the ditch. I stepped closer and pointed at the orange marker. "That line is county," I said. "Anything inside it needs a permit review." The younger worker eased off the trigger. Linda did not. "Keep cutting," she said, louder this time. The blade screamed again and a thin crack ran down the post like a fault line. That crack mattered. Water follows the smallest mistake. I pulled my phone and opened the permit portal. My access loaded fast. Project ID for this easement. Status, active. Restrictions, no disturbance within 15 feet of the flow line. I turned the screen toward the crew. The older man leaned in, eyes narrowing. "Ma'am, this shows restricted." Linda waved it off. "We updated our standards yesterday." She tapped her clipboard again. New paper. Fresh ink. No county seal. That mattered too. A light drizzle started. You could smell it hitting warm wood. The ditch behind the fence held a slow ribbon of brown water, barely moving, but the sky was building something heavier. I looked at the cut post again. Half severed. Load bearing. One good storm and that panel would lean, redirect flow, push water toward the lowest yards. 6 basements. Finished floors. Carpet. Furniture. I have seen it before. It starts quiet. It ends expensive. Paul took a few steps closer from across the street. "Is that the drainage line?" he asked. I nodded once. Linda heard him. Her voice sharpened. "Do not listen to speculation," she said. "This is a compliance action." The word compliance hung in the damp air like a bad smell. The worker killed the grinder again. "I need a supervisor," he said. "We could be liable." Linda's smile tightened. "I am the authority here." Another mistake. I zoomed in on the notice taped to my gate and read the fine print. Effective immediately. Enforced by board directive. No meeting record number. No vote tally. No timestamp beyond the date. The camera above my garage clicked again, tracking movement. Linda glanced up, then back at me. "Remove the obstruction or we proceed," she said. I stepped to the cut post and pressed my palm against it. It shifted a fraction. Just enough. The panel creaked. The ditch water caught a small twig and nudged it sideways toward the slope. Small changes. Big paths. I opened my contacts and hovered over a name in county operations. Stormwater control. I did not press call yet. Timing matters. The older worker set the grinder down on the wet grass. "We should stop," he said. "At least until this is cleared." Linda drew a breath like she was about to push harder. The HOA truck idled, exhaust drifting low. Curtains moved again down the block. More eyes now. The rain picked up a little, tapping faster on the leaves, on the wood, on the metal teeth of the blade. I took one more photo of the post, the marker, and her clipboard in the same frame. Evidence likes company. Linda raised her hand to signal the crew again, and this time her voice carried farther down the line. The grinder stayed silent, but Linda's hand did not drop. She held it in the air like a command that had not finished traveling. The rain thickened, soft at first, then steady, tapping faster on the fence panels and the metal housing of the saw. Water darkened the soil around the half-cut post. I watched the base of it. The dirt was already loosening. That mattered. The younger worker wiped his gloves on his jeans and stepped back another inch. "Ma'am, I am not cutting inside a restricted easement," he said. His voice was low, but it carried. Linda turned to him slowly. "You are contracted by the association," she said. "You follow direction." The older worker shook his head once. "We follow permits," he replied. That line hung there. Clean. Simple. True. Linda's smile faded just enough to show the edge underneath. She flipped a page on her clipboard and pointed to a paragraph. Section updates, she said. Effective immediately. I stepped closer and angled the page toward the light. No stamp. No registry number. No county header. The ink still looked fresh. I had seen approved documents for years. This was not one of them. A drop of water slid off the clipboard and blurred the corner of the text. Even the paper did not want to hold it. I lifted my phone again and pulled up the easement map overlay. Bright lines cut across my lot and into the drainage path behind it. I zoomed in and held it next to the post. The marker aligned exactly where it should. 15 feet from the flow line. The cut post sat inside that zone. No question. No gray area. Paul took another step closer, then stopped at the edge of the curb. If that goes, where does the water go? He asked. I did not look at him. Downhill, I said. Faster than it should. The ditch behind the fence began to fill. The brown ribbon widened, carrying small leaves and bits of mulch. The slope behind my yard was subtle, almost gentle, but I knew the grade by memory. I had walked it with survey crews. I had marked it in reports. Small changes here turned into pressure down there. Linda glanced at the ditch, then back at me, then at the crew. For a second, she hesitated. That second mattered. Then she straightened her shoulders. We are not stopping, she said. Finish the removal. The younger worker did not move. The older one bent down and unplugged the grinder from the extension cord. The motor went dead for good. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise before it. Linda's jaw tightened. You are refusing a directive, she said. We are avoiding a violation, the older worker replied. Rain tapped harder now, steady and insistent. It hit the half-cut post and ran along the split like a guide. I watched the water trace the line they started. It showed me exactly where the failure would go. I saved the images on my phone and opened a new message. County operations. Stormwater control. I attached 3 photos. The marker. The cut. The notice. I did not send it yet. Timing still mattered. Linda took a step toward me, heels pressing into the soft ground. You think this is your call? She asked. I met her eyes. It is not your easement, I said. Another drop slid down the clipboard and smeared the ink a little more. Behind her, the HOA truck idled, exhaust mixing with the smell of wet cedar and soil. Curtains moved again down the street. More people now. More eyes. The ditch rose another inch. Small, but not small enough. I hovered over the send button, watching the water find its path along the split post, and I realized she had just pushed this past a point she could not pull back from. My thumb hovered over the send button as the rain picked up another notch. It hit the split post and ran straight down the cut, carving a darker line into the wood. That line showed the failure path. I had seen that pattern before. It never stopped at one post. Linda stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the sharp note of her perfume cutting through the wet air. If you interfere, she said, you will be fined daily. I did not answer. I pressed send. The message left with a soft click. 3 photos, time-stamped, geotagged, and tied to the easement file I managed. The system would flag it. It always did. The older worker watched me, then nodded once like he understood what that meant. The younger one shifted his weight and unplugged the extension cord completely, coiling it halfway before stopping. Linda turned on him. Plug that back in, she said. He did not move. We are done, he replied. The word hung there. Done. Not delayed. Not paused. Done. Linda's jaw tightened again. She looked at the truck, then at the houses, then back at me. More doors were open now. People stood on porches with coffee cups and quiet faces. Nobody said a word. The rain filled the silence. Behind the fence, the ditch rose another inch. Water lapped against the base of the slope and carried a thin line of mulch sideways toward the cut post. Small shift. Clear direction. I stepped to the panel and pressed it again. It moved a fraction more than before. Enough to matter. You have altered a restricted area, I said, not loud, just steady. Linda laughed once, short and dry. You are not the county, she said. I slid my phone into my pocket. No, I said. I just managed their access. That landed. I saw it in the way her eyes flicked to the marker, then back to me. She flipped her clipboard closed a little too fast. Paper edges slapped together. The laminated notice on my gate curled at the corners as the rain soaked it. The ink bled slightly along the word illegal. Even that word was not holding. A low rumble rolled across the sky, not thunder yet, but close. The older worker stepped away from the fence entirely. And moved toward the truck. We need to log this, he said. Now. The younger one followed, leaving the grinder on the grass. The machine looked smaller without the noise. Linda stayed where she was. She raised her chin and spoke louder, for the street this time. This homeowner is obstructing community standards, she said. The word obstructing echoed off wet siding and closed windows. Paul set his coffee down on his mailbox and pulled out his phone. Another neighbor lifted theirs. Small clicks. Quiet evidence. Linda saw it. Her smile came back, thinner, tighter. You think pictures will change the rules, she said. I looked at the ditch, at the post, at the line the water had already chosen. Rules do not change water, I said. A single drop fell from the top rail and hit the split again, following the same path like it had been trained. The pattern repeated. Over and over. That is how problems grow. Not with one big push. With small, steady ones. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. County system. Received. Logged. Routed. That was fast. Faster than usual. I felt the shift before I saw it. Linda's eyes went to my pocket, then to the truck, then back to the fence. She opened her mouth like she was about to give another order, then stopped. For a moment, she looked at the cut post the way I did. Not as a board. As a point of failure. Then she squared her shoulders again, like she could still push through it. The rain kept tapping, the ditch kept rising, and somewhere down the line, something had already started moving. My phone buzzed again, longer this time, a low vibration that felt heavier than before. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Incoming call. County operations. That was fast. Too fast for routine. I answered and kept my voice level. Caldwell. The rain filled the pause on the other end. Then a familiar voice came through, tight and alert. Ethan, we just flagged a disturbance inside the Willow Creek easement. Is that you? I looked at the cut post, the sagging panel, the water tracing the split like it had found a shortcut. Yes, I said. Active interference. Half-cut support inside the 15-foot restriction. A short silence. Papers. Shuffling. Keyboard clicks. Hold position, she said. Do not allow further alteration. We are dispatching a field supervisor. That landed. I ended the call and slid the phone back into my pocket. Linda was watching me now, her eyes sharper, calculating. Calling in favors, she asked. I shook my head once. Logging a violation. The older worker leaned against the HOA truck, arms crossed, listening without pretending not to. The younger one stood beside him, hands still, waiting for direction that would not come from Linda anymore. The rain tapped harder on the metal hood of the truck. The sound was steady. Predictable. The kind of sound that builds. Behind the fence, the ditch widened another inch. The waterline crept up the bank and touched the roots of the grass. Small movement. Real consequence. I stepped closer to the post again and pressed it lightly. It shifted more this time. Not much. Just enough to feel the give. That give was the problem. Linda saw it. I could tell by the way her gaze dropped to the base of the post, then followed the thin stream running along the split. For a moment, she said nothing. That silence was new. Then she straightened, lifted her chin, and raised her voice again. "This structure is non-compliant," she said, projecting it toward the houses. "It will be removed." No one answered. Across the street, Paul held his phone steady, camera pointed, recording everything. Another neighbor stepped onto a porch down the block, umbrella half open, watching. The street had shifted. Quietly. Without permission. I reached down and picked up the laminated notice from my gate. The tape had loosened under the rain. The paper peeled back easily. The ink had started to run along the edges of the printed text. I held it up between two fingers and looked at the bottom line again. No registry number. No official seal. No filing reference. Just a signature that looked rushed. That detail stayed with me. Details always do. Where was this filed? I asked, holding it up. Linda did not answer right away. She glanced at the clipboard, then back at me. "Board directive," she said. Same words. Same tone. But this time, there was a slight delay before she spoke. That delay mattered. The older worker let out a quiet breath. "We are not touching that fence again," he said. "Not today." Linda turned on him. "You are under contract," she said. He did not move. "Not for that," he replied. The rain intensified again, a little heavier now, drumming against the truck, the fence, the pavement. The ditch responded immediately. The water picked up speed along the shallow grade, pressing harder against the bank near the cut. I watched the flow angle toward the weakened post. The path was forming. Slow. Certain. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. "County Field Supervisor. 10 minutes out." That was quicker than usual. Much quicker. I did not show the screen. I just locked the phone and slipped it back into my pocket. Linda noticed anyway. She always noticed small movements. That was her habit. But habits can blind you. She stepped back half a pace, just enough to put a little distance between herself and the fence. Her eyes moved from the ditch to the post to the HOA truck. Calculating again. Reframing. The rain kept falling. The water kept rising. And somewhere in those 10 minutes, everything was about to shift in a way she could not control. The rain shifted from steady to heavy, each drop hitting the fence with a sharper sound, like fingers drumming faster on a table. The ditch behind the panel swelled again, water now moving with intent instead of drift. I watched the current push against the bank near the cut post. It curled there, testing the weak point. That is how it always starts. Linda saw it too. She stepped back another inch, heels sinking slightly into the soft ground. It was subtle, but it was there. The space between her and the fence was growing. The older worker leaned against the truck, arms still crossed, eyes fixed on the post like he was waiting for it to move. The younger one checked his phone, then glanced down the street, then back at me. Everyone was listening for something now. Not the grinder. Something else. I checked my watch. 8 minutes. The timing felt tighter than usual. The system had escalated this faster than I had seen before. That meant one thing. The file had flagged as active risk, not just a report. That detail mattered. Linda broke the silence first. "You are making this bigger than it is," she said, voice controlled, but thinner now. I shook my head once. "No," I said. "It already is." The ditch surged again, a small wave pressing against the bank, then slipping along the split in the post. The wood darkened where the water touched it, soaking deeper into the cut. That line widened just enough to notice. I did not need to point it out. Linda was already looking. Across the street, Paul stepped off the curb and moved closer, staying just outside my driveway. He kept his phone raised. Another neighbor joined him, then another. No one spoke. The rain filled every gap between words. The HOA truck engine idled lower now, like it was settling into a longer wait. The older worker pushed off the hood and walked a few steps toward the fence, stopping short of the marker. He crouched slightly and studied the base of the post. "That is going to shift," he said quietly. "Not to Linda. Not to me. Just said it out loud." The younger worker nodded once, eyes following the same line of water I had been watching. Linda tightened her grip on the clipboard. The edges of the paper inside were curling from the moisture. She flipped it open again, scanning the same paragraph like it might change if she looked hard enough. It did not. That kind of document never changes in the rain. Only the ink runs. A low hum rolled in from the distance. Not thunder. Not traffic. Something heavier. I looked down the street. Two headlights cut through the gray, steady and direct, moving slower than normal traffic, like the driver knew exactly where they were going. The county vehicle had that look. No rush. No hesitation. Just purpose. The hum grew louder. The workers heard it. Both of them turned their heads at the same time. Linda did not. Not yet. She was still staring at the clipboard, still holding on to the idea that paper could override what was already happening in the ground beneath her feet. The water hit the split again, harder this time, and a faint creak came from the post. Just a sound. Small. But real. Paul lowered his phone for a second, eyes flicking from the fence to the approaching lights. Then he raised it again. The hum was close now. Close enough to change the air. Linda finally looked up. Her eyes followed the direction of everyone else's gaze. The headlights slowed at the edge of the block, then turned toward my driveway. The moment stretched, thin and sharp. And for the first time since she stepped onto my property, Linda did not say a word. The county truck rolled into my driveway without hurry, tires hissing over wet pavement. The engine cut, and for a second, the only sound was rain on metal and wood. The driver door opened. A man stepped out in a dark jacket with a small county seal on the chest. No rush in his movement. No confusion either. He took one look at the fence, then at the orange marker, then at the cut post. That order mattered. He already knew what he was seeing. Linda straightened, lifting her clipboard like it still carried weight. "This is a private community matter," she said before he even reached us. The man did not answer right away. He walked past her, boots sinking slightly into the soft ground, and stopped at the marker. He crouched, touched the soil near the base, then followed the line of water with his eyes up to the split post. "Who authorized work inside this easement?" he asked, voice calm, not loud. The older worker pointed once, not at me. At Linda. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, then tried again. "We updated our standards," she said. The man stood up slowly. Rain ran off the brim of his jacket and down onto the clipboard she held. "Standards do not override county restrictions," he said. Simple. Clean. Final. The words landed harder than anything else that morning. Linda tightened her grip. "This structure violates community rules," she said, pushing the paper forward like it could block what was already happening. The man did not look at the paper. He looked at the post. "This is now a disturbance inside a controlled drainage path," he said. "That makes it our problem." The younger worker exhaled quietly. The older one nodded once, like a decision had finally been confirmed. I stepped back half a pace, giving the man a clear line to the fence. He walked closer to the cut and pressed the post lightly. It shifted. Not much. Enough. He did not need to say it out loud. Everyone saw it. The ditch behind the fence surged again, water pressing harder now, the current tracing the same line along the split like it had memorized the path. The man turned slightly, scanning the slope beyond the fence, then the houses downhill. He was mapping the consequence in his head. I recognized the look. I had worn it myself. Linda followed his gaze for a second, then snapped back. "You cannot just override a board directive," she said. He met her eyes for the first time. "I am not overriding anything," he replied. "I am documenting a violation." That word changed the air. Violation. Not dispute. Not disagreement. Violation. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notepad, rain speckling the pages as he wrote. The sound of pen on paper cut through the rain in a steady rhythm. Each line he wrote made the situation heavier. More real. Paul lowered his phone slightly, watching the man instead of the fence now. The street felt different. Quieter. Focused. The county truck idled off, engine silent, but the presence of it filled the driveway like a boundary had been drawn. Linda shifted her weight again, a small step back, then another. She looked at the workers. Neither of them moved. She looked at me. I said nothing. The man finished writing and tore a page free. He did not hand it to me. He handed it to Linda. She hesitated before taking it. The paper shook slightly in her hand, not from fear, but from the rain and everything else pressing in at once. She glanced down at it, eyes moving quickly, then slower. That was the moment it changed for her. Not when the truck arrived. Not when the post shifted. Right then. When the words were in her hand. The ditch rose another inch behind us, water pressing against the bank with quiet insistence. The man looked back at the fence one more time, then at me. A small nod. Not approval. Not comfort. Just acknowledgement. Then he turned toward the truck. Linda stood still, staring at the paper, the rain soaking it line by line, and she had not realized yet what the next step would cost her. The paper in Linda's hand softened under the rain, edges curling as the ink began to blur, but she did not lower it. She read it again, slower this time, like the words might change if she gave them enough attention. They did not. The county supervisor had already turned back toward his truck, but he had not left. That mattered. He opened the rear door and pulled out a bright orange marker flag and a small metal stake. No rush. No hesitation. He walked past Linda again and drove the stake into the ground beside the first marker with 2 firm pushes. The sound of metal hitting soil was dull, controlled, final. A second boundary. A clearer one. The rain tapped against the new marker, running down the plastic ribbon in thin streams. Linda watched it go in. Her shoulders tightened again. "You are escalating this unnecessarily," she said, voice sharper now, less controlled. The supervisor did not look up. "It was already escalated when the post was cut," he replied. He stood and brushed his hands together once, then pointed at the split. "That needs to be stabilized immediately." The older worker nodded before Linda could speak. "We can brace it," he said. The younger one was already moving, grabbing a spare board from the truck bed. Linda turned toward them, frustration breaking through the calm she had held all morning. No one touches that structure without HOA approval, she said. The older worker did not stop. This is not HOA anymore, he replied. The words landed clean. No argument left in them. The younger worker pressed the board against the weakened post, holding it steady. The older one drove a temporary brace into the ground just outside the marked line, careful, measured, watching where the soil shifted. The post steadied a fraction. Enough to slow the movement. Not enough to undo it. The ditch surged again behind them, water pressing harder now, testing the new brace the same way it had tested the split. I watched the flow adjust. It always does. It finds a path. The supervisor took a step back and scanned the line again, from marker to post to slope. He pulled out his phone and snapped 2 quick photos. Documentation on top of documentation. That builds fast. Linda looked down at the paper again, then up at the growing crowd, then back at the fence. The street had changed around her. More people now. More cameras. Quiet, steady attention. She was not controlling it anymore. She stepped toward me, lowering her voice. You did this, she said. Not loud. Not for the others. I met her eyes. You cut it, I said. That was enough. She looked away first. The rain intensified again, heavier drops now, louder against the truck, the fence, the pavement. The brace held, but the pressure behind it grew. You could see it in the way the water climbed the bank, in the way the current pressed against the line that had been opened. The supervisor slipped his phone back into his pocket and walked toward the truck again. He paused at the door and looked back once more at the fence, then at Linda, then at me. This will move to enforcement, he said. Simple. Direct. No room to argue. Linda's grip on the paper tightened again, but this time she did not speak. The words were already out there. The rain kept falling. The water kept rising. And the cost of that one cut was still unfolding. The rain did not let up, and the sound of it filled every space between us, steady and relentless. The temporary brace held the post in place, but only just. I could see the strain in the wood, the way it leaned into the support instead of standing on its own. That was not stability. That was delay. The ditch behind the fence had widened again, the water now moving faster, pressing harder against the bank as if it had already decided where it wanted to go. The county supervisor stood by his truck, writing something else, adding to the record. Every line he wrote built weight. Not just for me. For her. Linda still held the paper, though it was nearly soaked through now. The edges had curled inward, and the ink had blurred into faint streaks. She looked at it less now. More at the fence. More at the ditch. More at the people watching. That shift mattered. She stepped back another pace, putting space between herself and the post, like distance might reduce what had already happened. It would not. The older worker adjusted the brace again, pushing it deeper into the ground just outside the marked line. The soil gave slightly under the pressure, wet and soft. He stopped before crossing the boundary. Careful now. Very careful. The younger worker stood beside him, watching the water, tracking its movement the same way I had been since the first cut. No one spoke. There was nothing left to argue. The supervisor finished writing and closed his notepad, then walked back toward us. He did not rush. He did not need to. He stopped near the marker and looked at the post again, then at the brace, then at the flow behind it. He nodded once, like the situation had confirmed itself. Temporary stabilization is acceptable, he said. Permanent correction will be required. Linda looked up sharply at that. Correction, she repeated. The word sounded different in her voice now. Less certain. He met her gaze briefly. At your expense, he said. Simple. Direct. No emphasis needed. That was the line that changed everything. I watched it land. Her grip on the paper loosened just enough that one corner slipped from her fingers and folded over. She did not pick it up right away. For the first time, she looked past the fence, down the slope, toward the houses below. She followed the same path the water would take if the brace failed. That path told its own story. 6 homes. Finished basements. Property lines that did not care about HOA rules when water crossed them. The rain intensified again, heavier drops now, louder against the wood, the truck, the pavement. The ditch surged in response, pushing harder, faster, testing the brace with each small wave. It held. For now. The supervisor turned back toward his truck and opened the door, pausing once more before getting in. He looked at me, then at the fence, then at Linda. Not a warning. Not a threat. Just acknowledgement of what had been set in motion. He got into the truck and closed the door. The engine started, low and steady. Linda stood still, the paper hanging loosely in her hand, her attention fixed on the post that had started it all. Around us, the neighborhood stayed quiet, watching, recording, absorbing. The rain kept falling. The water kept rising. And the outcome was no longer hers to control.